Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is frigid up here today in New York City at the Broadway Cares office, but I hope all of you are finding some moments of warmth here wherever you are in these winter months. I know that we have one of our guests from Alabama, so I suspect you may be the only one. But I do understand that there are many new folks who are joining us this morning. So for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Tom Viola. I'm the Executive Director at Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I look forward to knowing you and having the opportunity to thank you at some point in person soon. So today, I am very excited as valued members of the Broadway Cares family to have you join us as we open our virtual doors of the office here for a conversation focusing on congregate meal programs that you all very much make possible. Let me give you a little bit of background, though, of something that you've very much been a part of that we just completed about two weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we had a committee of 18 stage managers and actors who participated in our most recent fall fundraising campaign, and they reviewed 146 applications and awarded over $2.8 million to those organizations all across the country, in New York City, literally all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. And a good number of those, including the three we're going to meet here this morning, were congregate meal programs. That food grant round consists of delivered meals, food pantries, and what we are going to talk about today, congregate meal programs, all that you make very possible. So today we are going to hear from three more remarkable organizations and learn more about how your support provides community through food. We will also be joined by Broadway Cares Major Gifts and Planned Giving Officer, my colleague and friend Nick Mayo, who will moderate this conversation. So let's get this show on the road and I'd like to introduce our first guest. Our first guest indeed received her master's degree from the University of Nebraska in clinical psychology, specializing in behavior and trauma. She began her career as a clinician working with children and adolescents, then transitioned into administrative roles, running a trauma-based group home for young adults presenting with co-occurring diagnoses. 2 years ago, she shifted from working with children to working with adults, walking through the doors of the Boston Living Center, where I'm told she immediately felt right at home. And one of her members sort of told her that day, I sort of love this, we're no different from your previous clients, we just have wrinkles. So please welcome from the Victory Program Boston Living Center, Program Director Alyssa Collaro, and our moderator, Nick Mayo.
Hey, Alyssa.
Hi, good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
And just remind us where you're zooming in from this morning.
Sure, I'm zooming in from Boston, Massachusetts.
Wonderful. It looks sunny in your background. It looks quite nice.
Yes, it's a wonderful green screen here. I wish it was the same weather. It's a little bit chilly here today, but we're making do. We're ready for summer, so.
Well, thank you for being here. I sort of want to start this conversation, if you, Tom and Alyssa, don't mind. Can we talk about what is a congregate meal program and how does it differ from a food pantry or meal delivery? What is a congregate meal program?
Absolutely. A congregate meal program, and especially for us, is really the center of what we do for our community center. For us, we really want to focus on how we support our members in living, and the congregate meal program really allows our members to come in and we serve our members and eat in family style setting and sit at a table together and quite literally break bread. Our staff sit at the table, enjoy meals with our members, and really help to end that social isolation and end that social stigma that exists for so many of the individuals that we're working with. So it's one of the many services that we provide, but to me, it's one of the most important services that we provide daily. So.
Would you say that when someone comes to your congregate meal, that it sort of is the first way that you can connect them to other services that are offered at Victory programs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For a lot of our members, the stigma that they face everywhere is extremely isolating. It's extremely anxiety provoking. And so coming in and knowing that not only are they getting their immediate needs met by getting a hot meal, one that's made with love, respect, from a scratch kitchen. We often get stories. We have a restaurant that's directly next to us, and we are often told that it is better than the $25 meal that they could get next door. So, I just had a council meeting with quite a few of my members, and they just rave about the quality of food and the amount of food and the love that's put into the food. We have 3 main chefs that work to cook every single day, and we're serving roughly 150 meals a day. And those individuals, each one of them, are being served by volunteers and by our staff and sit down. We do not serve our meals on, to-go containers or paper containers. It's served on china. It's served, with metal silverware. We want them to know that they are coming into a space that they have ownership of, that they are treated with respect and dignity. And even if they're not ready to take the next step to have conversations with anybody, they are sitting in a space together, having that congregate meal with other people, at helping to end that isolation and loneliness.
How many congregate meals do you do in a week? How many opportunities?
Sure. So we serve breakfast and lunch every single day, Monday through Friday, and we serve dinner on Mondays.
Wow, that's great. How many people come to those meals on an average?
So we serve about 75 unique individuals a day.
Wow. Speaking of sitting at the same table together, I do want to open this conversation up. If there's someone here in our virtual audience who has a question of Alyssa or Tom or myself, please feel free to use that raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll call on you. We definitely want to sit at the same table together, and metaphorically break bread. Alyssa, you talked about stigma, and I think that it might be helpful to understand the actuality of that stigma. Like, that's a word that we throw around, but what does it mean for your clients? And how does this help break that barrier?
Absolutely. I think back to the history specifically of the Boston Living Center. And so I think, just a very quick story around that. We started in 1989 as a dinner club for men living with HIV and AIDS, when it was frowned upon to get together, to exist in the world when you were living with HIV. And so the group of men got together to have dinner at each other's house, to literally focus on how are they going to live and not focus on their diagnosis and dying. Those men formed our nonprofit and named it the Boston Living Center because they wanted to focus on living, and living positively. And that is the center of what we do. And so our Monday night dinner especially is so special to us, and inviting everyone in to continue to be able to live, to end that isolation and end that stigma that just because I have a diagnosis, or because I'm struggling with food insecurity or housing insecurity or substance use disorder or whatever medical, needs might be prevalent, doesn't mean that I don't deserve services or support or friendships or peer network. And so that is the center of everything that we do. And so, we have a member who came from California because he heard about all the services that were available in Boston and really felt like he was going to be able to get more services, but didn't know anybody here, and heard about the Boston Living Center and came in, walked in on his own for a referral. We completed intake, and he was not ready to work one-to-one with peers or talk about housing, was living on the street, but would come in. He was the first person in the morning, waiting outside the doors when we opened, and would just sit at the table and sit and listen to people's conversations. And slowly we would see him sit at the table with other individuals and have breakfast every morning. And then he was here throughout the day, and the same thing, would sit at tables and introduce himself, not necessarily talking or engaging, but would begin to sit and have lunch. And he became so well known and slowly started to join groups and join support. And we were able to, through that, navigate him to our case management and get him housed. And so he was housed through the winter, and he wasn't on the street, living on the street through a Boston winter. And, you know, it's a huge part of what we do in that navigation. And, you know, as you asked about at the beginning of this call, where is that first touch point? And often it is in the dining room, where it's less stressful, you know, to have conversations, and our staff are there and we're floating around, and peers are able to open up and talk about where their journey began and how they've continued to grow and open. And once you're a member, you're always a member. And we use those meals as a center of learning to live, which is where our roots began with the men who formulated the Boston Living Center.
I love the idea that people can come together and sort of, in some ways, the pressure's off because our shared goal is to nourish.
Exactly.
Like, we're just here to nourish. We're not, for this moment, for this 45 minutes, for this hour, we're just here to be nourished. So it's a great equalizer, right? It's human. We all have to do it. And giving that opportunity.
I'm sorry. And food is medicine, and we know that, and we want to be able to provide that nourishment, as you know, you're so eloquently saying, to every person who walks through our door, and remove that one basic need that they feel like they're not getting, and make sure that they can take that with them. And part of what we do with the meals and the congregate meals that are provided is ensure that they also have a meal that they can take home with them. And so it's such a huge part of the support that we receive, is to understand that the majority of our members, we are their primary, if not secondary, form of food. So we are providing them with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Even if we're not open, they are getting a meal to go as well.
And
how do you connect them to health services? I mean,
to peer networking?
Yeah.
So we also employ peers with lived experience, as well as case management and social workers. And so all of those staff are in the building and floating around in the building. We have peer support groups and peer support services. And oftentimes those things happen in the dining room and in those spaces, but they also happen throughout the building. And so our members are welcome to engage in those services. We really look towards taking that support and that care to the well-being of the entire individual through the lifespan. So that is kind of the aim of working in these marginalized communities, and how can we continue to, through congregate level care, not just with our meal services, but congregate level care throughout the center and throughout the community center.
Well, it's really quite amazing that you are basically the touch point that brings a person into the whole safety net of services.
Thank you.
Thank you for the amazing work you're doing there, and for sharing the story specifically of that individual who traveled all the way to get the services that were made available by your program, and then found community. I want everyone in our virtual table today to understand that that nourishment, that belief in living is something that you have your fingerprints all over. Your support is making that man's journey from sitting on the periphery to sitting at tables. The slow journey could not be possible without your support. And Alyssa, thank you so much for sharing so generously. And if you don't mind heading back to the virtual green room, we're going to circle back up at the end of the conversation and be able to all have a collective meal again together. I'm going to stop with the meal metaphors. I know they're annoying, but
thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. We'll see you shortly.
Great. So continuing, our second guest has 20 plus years of experience in crisis management, mental health counseling, and instructional training, most recently as a mental health case manager with the Vivo and as a mental health practitioner at the Pride Institute. He received his master's in clinical mental health in 2018. He has worked within the LGBTQ communities at Pride Institute and Bay Area Youth Positive Program in San Francisco. He currently sits on the board of the Minnesota HIV Care and Prevention Council and works at Insight Counseling Practice, private practice, in his, and I can't believe we actually are going to say this, spare time. Please welcome from the Aliveness Project, Social Services Director, James McMurray. Hey, James.
Good morning to everyone. How are you doing out there?
We're good. Thank you so much for taking some of that spare time and joining us this morning.
I love it.
James, so I'm noticing a trend between you and Alyssa. There's living and aliveness. So I guess you would probably share some of the sentiments Alyssa was talking about.
Yes. I feel like, some of the things Alyssa said were right on point with us. The Aliveness Project was founded in 1985. Next year will be our 40th anniversary. My organization was founded by a group of members living with HIV, and those individuals wanted to celebrate being alive. So the name came out of that, aliveness. They gathered with their loved ones for a potluck where they could unite over food and really foster healing in those devastating times. Because in the 80s, people were being diagnosed with HIV and passing away. So we do have a lot of long-term members that, have lost friends, but they're still here. And they come to our location daily for meals. And I feel like our services are similar to a place on China daily. We do, I can tell you a little bit more if you have questions. We do have hot meals that are served from 12 to 2 daily. Members can take 3 meals to go. On an average, I will let you ask me some questions. I would say on an average, we serve anywhere on a daily basis about 225 meals up to about 350 daily. By the end of the week, we do about 1250 hot meals.
Amazing.
And when you guys are talking about hot meals, I also would imagine there's lots of conversations about healthy meals. And can you talk a little bit about the people who either volunteer their time or work there to ensure that those healthy meals make it to the plate, and sort of what that process is? How many folks how many cooks in that kitchen, if you don't mind, making those meals?
We do have one chef, and then the chef has another cook with them, and they've got 4 cook assistants. We have a large number of volunteers on a daily basis. We have at least anywhere from 3 to 4 volunteers that come from either colleges or other locations where they want to dedicate their time. We have the only registered HIV dietitian in the state of Minnesota working at Aliveness. So she works closely with them to come up with meal preparations. All of our meals are made from scratch daily. We do solicit information from our members saying, what are some things that you want? So we will do some culturally specific meals. There's something for everyone. So we do have things for people that are gluten-free. I'm trying to think of the other one. There's a few celiac. So I've got a large number of staff and members that can't have some things, and then we got some that are just strictly vegetarian. There's either, if it comes to a meat, there's a lamb, chicken, pork, beef cooked daily for someone. So that's one of the things that we do. And I think they have a lot of great conversations with one another to figure out what's best for the member.
That was sort of what I was going to ask next, which is, every city is its own culture, and every dinner table has its own, as we know when we sit at family dinner tables or friends dinner tables, has its own conversations. What are some conversations happening at your tables about how to best serve your specific community there in Minneapolis? Obviously there's cold winters. You're having a different conversation than a congregate meal program in Florida. But what are some needs that you're hearing about your specific communities?
Since we spend, out of the 12 months, there's about 6 months that we do spend where there's snow on the ground or cold here in Minnesota. So we will do a lot of hot meals, as far as like even hot meals considering soups in the morning or doing a breakfast. We're not funded for breakfast, but we still will do breakfast in the morning for members. And we just sort of end up writing it off and knowing that we're doing something great for our members. I know a lot of times people if you go to other organizations or clients, everyone that's living with HIV at the Aliveness Project is called a member. So we never get to really call them a client or a patient. Even though we have a clinic here, they're still members. Uh, but those conversations can go any kind of way. We may, we sit with them and find out what they like, what they dislike. We ask for recommendations. What would you like to see on the menu? We've got a Dropbox that people can put suggestions in and come up with things that they think will be best for us.
All these considerations just make it such a human experience, right? Which is, I mean, you would do that for a friend, for anyone. What would you like today? How can we best serve you? I think that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. Do you have anyone who shows up at your table who sticks out to you, who is someone who comes with regularity? I'm sure you have quite a few.
Oh, we do. You can hear them as they come into the building. So we open up daily at 9. Some of them are already waiting as we walk into the door. So we're a community center. They can hang out here from 9 to 4. Throughout that time, we've got A plus. That is a group with anyone living with HIV can go to that support group. We have tea time. That is for anyone that's trans or femme. They get a chance to go there as well. We've got a DIA support group, which is men that sleep with men can have their own conversation. So we do get a chance to all come together, but at some point in time we separate. There's a BIPOC group, a little bit of everything, I would say, at the table, from young individuals that have just been diagnosed. We have some kids that were HIV positive, so those families come through the doors with their kids, and they break bread with us here as well. And one of the things we do, our executive director, all the directors and staff are encouraged to sit downstairs at the tables with them and have conversations. It allows us, you also can de-escalate easily that way too. If you're down there with staff, if you're with members, people won't really get out of hand sometimes. We can just be there to spread some cheer. We've got water fountain there that we've also have. We're one of the only ASOs in the state that has a food shelf also. So our food shelf is designed like a grocery store. Members can also, other than hot meals, they can come through and get anywhere from 65 pounds to 80 pounds of groceries once a month. And then on Tuesdays and Fridays, we have a half shelf. Those are things that are donated from either Second Harvest, Whole Foods, or any local grocery stores, or community members can bring meals in here. Those are things that we give out to individuals.
I love
James, what about this work most connects with you? I mean, what about what part of your day sort of keeps you coming back the following day?
Well, I will say, when you gave up all, when you explain all the things that I do this for about 40 hours a week, and then I work as a mental health practitioner on Saturday and Sunday. I'm there sometimes Friday. I'll be there tomorrow, Friday. I'll do 11 to 7, and then I still work 9 that morning to 2. It sounds a little crazy, and I work at Insight Counseling. I think overall, all the clients I see them in all 3 places. Mm-hmm. And I do know that I'm doing something that's beneficial to the state of Minnesota and to individuals. As I was growing up, I think I got a chance to go with my grandmother as a nurse, and she went to places and helped people out. And I thought, oh, I want to do that when I grow up. And I feel like she's with me each day as I get a chance to meet with my members, go downstairs and have breakfast with them, or take a walk if people are not feeling comfortable in the space, but making sure that, we can move from this environment and go elsewhere. But I come back because I know I've got a purpose here. And when you talked about spare time, I think I always hear the word, people say, oh my God, you're going to burn out. I'm like, I feel like if you're compassionate and passionate about what you do, it's no longer hard to do it. It just sort of works with ease. Mm-hmm. And I'll do it until I'll say an old man or much older, and then maybe I'll chill out and relax. But that's my reason for coming back daily.
James, it
We-
sounds like it feeds you in the same way you feed the community. It sounds like a very symbiotic relationship. And that sort of generosity and joy just radiates from you when you're talking about what you do, which thank you so much for being so gracious to share your story and your spare time. But it really is, it's a pleasure to watch you speak about what you do, because I can tell that it feeds you as much as you feed it. So
Well,
thank you for that.
Your grandmother must be seeing you from above and is very proud.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of us talk about it, and earlier when you talked about family, it does feel like family. So you get a chance to realize that we create multiple families.
Sure.
So I get to sit with them daily, and people know me. So and you get to know them and figure out what's going on, or they may come through with their pet. We are pet friendly too. If a pet comes through the door, we make an announcement, and everybody loves to pet the pet. We've got dog treats, cat treats. So
Right.
it's a great space.
Thank you so much, James, for sharing. And we'll join you at the end of the conversation when we all three come back together. But I want everyone to hear that enthusiasm of James and understand when he talks about family, you are part of the family of care for these people who show up at these congregate meal programs. Whether or not you're physically present at the table, you are part of that family of care. So thank you. And I just want to encourage you again, if you'd like to ask a question of Tom or myself or any of our panelists, you can use that raise the hand feature and we're happy to call on you. Tom, I'll pass it back to you to introduce.
Yes, let's introduce our third guest. So, since his AIDS diagnosis in 1995, he has worked to ensure a better quality of life for those infected and affected by HIV/AIDS by providing advocacy, leadership, and programming that is preventing new HIV infections while helping individuals and families access the treatment and care that they need and deserve. He served on the Governor's Ending the Epidemic Task Force and is currently a member of the New York State AIDS Advisory Council. And he has served as the Damien Center's director since 1999. Please welcome from the Albany Damien Center, Executive Director Perry James Junjulis.
Hey, everyone.
Perry.
Thank you so much for having me on today. It has really been incredible hearing the stories from James and Alyssa, which really mirror some of what we are doing.
Perry, I would love to start with what brings you to the table. Why this work?
Sure.
What called you to this work?
This work for me was very personal. I actually went to the Damien Center back in 1995 when I found out that I had full-blown AIDS. And I was very sick at the time, and they told me I had 3 months to live. And I really didn't have a reason to doubt anybody. Everybody around me was dying. There were not meds that were really great at the time. And so I went to the Damien Center, not knowing what to expect. What I found was an incredible community that was really coming together in a drop-in space that was very secret. Okay, so the door would open a little bit. You'd have to explain your situation because at the time there was a tremendous amount of discrimination and of people living with HIV and AIDS. So for me, it was very personal. And as I got better, because the new meds were starting to come out, they asked me to join the Damien Center. And so I think every time that I see a person come in, I see myself back in the day of that person who felt so alone, so afraid, and so nervous about what tomorrow was going to bring. And truly, having this community center was a lifeline.
Thank you for sharing that, Perry. I could imagine that the gift of being greeted by someone like you with such a personal investment is so comforting to your members. So thank you for sharing that. I'm interested to know, regionally, you're in Albany, correct? What are some of the challenges that face your specific community, and what brings them to the table? What need drives them, other than the obvious of nourishment?
Sure. So, Albany, we're about 3 hours north of New York City. And so our region is definitely disproportionately affected by HIV and AIDS. And our program, which has been around since 1988, is really unique in a way that we're really the only place in the region that has a drop-in center, true drop-in center for persons with HIV. And specifically, we seem to cater towards persons who are very low income, also from communities of color, people from our LGBT community, who are essentially invisible a lot of times in the street. People will walk over them, walk by them. A lot of our homeless persons who are living with HIV, and they come to the Damien Center and are recognized by name as they come in.
Hmm.
And our program as well, we serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner 5 days a week. And then we also have special events on the weekends. And also we are open for all holidays. So we know that for a lot of our persons, we are their family. They don't have, and the age range is all over the map. We have younger persons who really have not had a good upbringing, if you would, or advantages of having family that cared. And so we become that family. We have older persons who have lost a lot of their immediate connections. And so we become, again, their family. And I think I mean, I have lots of special moments, but coming in the morning, smelling breakfast, the bacon and eggs going through the building, and just catching up with people, seeing people, and it's not always pretty. Sometimes I'm coming in and I'm seeing someone who is homeless who had gotten beaten up the night before, because unfortunately our homeless are still victims and well, I would say victims, they're targets of people. And so at least when they come in, they feel comfortable, they feel safe, they know that the people that are there will help them. And I think that's the environment that we've created. And again, it's always centered around the meals. Our congregate meal program is the glue, I always say the magic of the Damien Center, that people come together for a meal, and the next thing you know, I see them talking with each other, helping each other. We have staff, we have volunteers, but invariably I find someone who had experienced homelessness who is housed is ready to give their last penny or the coat off their back to somebody else who has come in. And I see this sort of magic happen every day. And a lot of it is really, around the meal times. I always kid around about 2 o'clock after everybody's been fed. That's usually nap time. Everyone's just kind of like laying back and sitting around. And I'm like, it's great. You feel safe in a safe environment. You can actually close your eyes for 5 minutes, and chill out before dinner.
What's amazing, the extraordinary safe haven that you create just by offering and creating a meal. I mean, we've seen this certainly with the congregate meal programs again and again and again. What are the services? Does the Damien Center connect some of your congregate meal clients, if you will, how does it expand from there?
Sure. So this is really the first step in getting people services. And it's also when someone comes in need of services, it's the first thing they're offered. Hey, are you hungry? It's just such a natural way to kind of say, and usually they are hungry. And it's just such a natural way to start to get to know somebody. And as they come in every day, you get to know more about the person than they've ever told their doctors or their case managers. And so we're in a very unique position to be able to help. And so we have other programs. So we have a housing program that helps provide permanent supportive housing. So we are able to work with persons who are homeless to get them into housing with case management. We have a pharmacy right on site. And so this is, as we know, with people living with HIV, and AIDS, like myself, the only reason we are alive today is because we're taking the medications. We need to take these medications. And so for persons who come in for the first time, oftentimes they're not taking their medications. So it is a little bit of a slow process, but as soon as we get them housed, we get them to the doctor, we're able to get them on medications with our pharmacy right downstairs. And the AIDS clinic, we have a designated AIDS clinic, is not very far. I want to say it's about 10 minutes away. And we continually have like a shuttle that goes back and forth to be able to help people. We also have a pet program, which helps people keep their pets. And so that's another program that I love. So a lot of times at the Damien Center, you will see dogs running around, you'll see kids running around, you'll see people in various stages of either happy or sad, but coming together. I'll never forget one time that someone had said to me once, they said, I didn't realize this was an agency. I thought this was just your home and you were being nice to the whole neighborhood. I said, well, that is actually one of the best compliments because I wanted to make this place like home and maybe the home you never had, the home you've always wanted, where you're truly accepted for exactly who you are, where you're at, no judgment. We fall, we get back up. I always say it's about now and moving forward with people.
Well, Perry,
Very,
this is an amazing story. The arc of your generosity of spirit and kindness from 1995 to today is really just extraordinary. It's great. It's great to meet you here.
very, very grateful. Before we call Alyssa and James back to the stage, I want to say something that you said that will stick with me, which is the power of saying someone's name.
Yeah.
And we might take that for granted in our daily lives. You probably hear your name a dozen, 2 dozen times a day, but the power of what it could mean for an individual to just have their name said. Good morning, Perry. Good morning, Tom. Good morning, Kat. Whoever. The power of that is nourishing. So that will stick with me.
They truly respond well to this is their center. And I think the way this has happened has not necessarily been because we've provided services to them. It's because they have felt comfortable in hanging out, sharing meals together. And a lot of times they'll be in the kitchen helping out, helping to prepare the meals, helping with, planning meals and things. And so that is sort of, again, I think that magic of watching someone come in, and I just so many stories of people coming in alone, scared, not talking to a soul, sitting in the corner the first day. And by the end of the week, the next thing you know, they're sitting with other people, they're interacting, they're looking better, because they're actually eating on a regular basis. I can't tell you how many people skip meals before they came to us. And for me, skipping meals is just not a part of I'm Italian. And my mother, she fed the whole neighborhood, we're used to, if you got to eat, you got to eat, and so when people are skipping meals, that really hurts me personally. So, but then I watch about a month later, and that same person who sat in the corner is helping other people, and they're like blossoming as far as getting everybody in the living room together, and helping others. And so this has been sort of this, I want to call it the circle of life I've seen over time, is that when someone new comes in, there's a whole community that sort of wraps around them. And it's because of the congregate meal program that this magic, if you would, again, happens, because all good things come over sharing a meal. It really does.
Thank you,
Thank
Perry.
you so much
Let's
for
get
sharing.
Alyssa and James back here with us. Hit your camera
Right,
there.
there they come. Hi, Alyssa. Alyssa, since you popped up
There we are.
first, I have a sort of comment from the audience.
Sure.
It says, this isn't a question, it's just a comment. When I lived in Minneapolis for 30+ years, I was a supporter of the Aliveness Project. So James, for you. And also a volunteer driver at Open Arms food delivery program. So I was delighted to learn that the work at Broadway Cares and the support of these terrific programs, it truly has, as you all have mentioned, come full circle. So thank you, Amy, for sharing your story of connection, right? That universal, we're all sitting at the same table, if you would.
And also, I should jump in here just for a second, because as I mentioned, we just did our food service grant round 2 weeks ago. And I know those checks went out, I think, literally the beginning of this week. So, the Boston Living Center, the Aliveness Project, and the Damien Center are 3 of our long-term grantees. I mean, we've been a part of your work. We've been very proud to support your work and happy to support your work, thanks to our extraordinary donors here, for literally over 25, in some cases going on 30 years. So it's wonderful to actually put extraordinary faces with the amazing work that's being done. And one of the things I'd like to mention here, I know we're still going on, but I'll say it here so I don't lose the moment. I'm very happy for Broadway Cares to send each of the organizations here, Boston Living Center, Aliveness Project, and Damien Center, an additional $2,500 grant, separate from the grant that's in the mail probably and is going to arrive today or tomorrow, in honor of our not only the work that you're doing, but our extraordinary donors on this chat who make this support possible. So there'll be that look for that check coming to each of your attentions.
Thank you, Tom, so much. And I just could tell you how from the Damien Center, we are so appreciative. I can't say it hasn't been hard with inflation, with the rising food costs, and us like Alyssa's program, we do everything from scratch, which to me is an incredible value. But the prices of groceries are just, so it really is a partnership at the end of the day of Broadway Cares and all of your donors helping us to be able to do our work. So extremely grateful.
Harry, you're getting a lot of head shakes from Alyssa and James. I would love to know, and you sort of asked the question that I was going to ask. Inflation. We've all been to the grocery store. We've seen the change of prices of eggs. How is that affecting your work? And how is the support of this room helping to fill that gap? And I'm sure that's a pain point. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to echo everything that Perry just said. You said it beautifully. So thank you, everyone. That's huge for us. Yeah, it's been really hard. I mean, I think I have all of our meals, I'm very lucky, are planned by a registered dietitian. So every single thing that comes to this door is looked at purposefully and intentionally. And the menu is designed by that RD. I just had a conversation with her. She's also my food and nutrition service manager and does all of our food ordering. And just to kind of give an example, we have a weekly order that we put in with a vendor for fresh vegetables, our normal dairy products to kind of cook everything. And typically, that costs us about $300 a week. That same order, exact same quantity, everything was $1,000 this past term. So we have increased the number of individuals served by about 60 from about this time last year when I'm comparing. And we are increasing how many individuals we're serving daily. The number of intakes continues to grow. We will never cap the number of individuals coming through our door. That is just not something that we will ever do. Yet that money is continuing to increase and increase. So we don't want to change the quality of food or change how we are making that food. So we are looking at how are we, changing things and what can that look like. We really are pulling together our members to say, what do you guys want? Because, as it was echoed both from James and Perry, this is their space. They have ownership over this and we want to hear from them. What do they need? What would make them feel, still feel comfortable while we're managing all of this, but every dollar helps because we want to make sure that they're still taken care of.
And I heard you describe the need for more seats at the table and the rising cost of the food on the table. That's where the people in this room and your support fills in the gap, right? And I don't think any of us are foolish enough to believe that this will go away, that prices of eggs will automatically go down. But as need increases and the cost of that food on that plate increase, you really do, it's more important than ever to help fill that gap, to ensure the quality, as you said, Alyssa, it's not negotiable that we won't serve the healthy meal. So how do we make it work? And we all make it work together. James?
I was only going to go right off of what Perry and Alyssa just said too. When it comes to inflation, the news came to us and asked us questions about it. What are you doing differently? We're not doing anything differently. You can't change what you're actually doing for members. We can't lessen the food if we've already guaranteed them a hot meal and three meals a day. We're not going to change it. So we're still utilizing any donations that come through the door, any additional volunteer work, any produce that we may get from one of the local grocery stores here. Those things do help. And as Alyssa said, more people at the table. We do talk more and more about this to individuals at our Capitol, any of our when we're writing grants, we do talk about the need for additional money or just having any additional funding. If there's funding left at the table, we're like, can we utilize it for food? Or we're like, oh, we're running out of this. And somebody seems to always come in at the last hour and help out. So I think it's always been great. Sometimes members that will even donate money and say, I got this money from a family member, here goes. And that may be dedicated to purchasing something else for food. But I would definitely say the additional $2,500 that you said will go a long way.
We're very happy to do that.
I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to be respectful of your time, knowing that you have meals to cook, people to care for. I'm inspired by all of you, and the universal quality of care that connects you. And I know everyone in this room is connected by that same care, but thank you for coming and giving us information about your unique communities and the conversations that are happening at your tables. We're very grateful. I'm going to hand it over to Tom to sort of wrap us out, but thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Did we have any questions, Nick, from anybody, or did we?
We did not. We had some comments of just
okay,
woohoo,
cool.
thumbs up, and wow.
They were mesmerized by these stories. So look, I want to be cognizant of our time here together and make sure we can all get on with our days, but particularly our friends Alyssa, James, and Perry can get back to their very important work. I want to thank everyone who tuned in here today to hear these stories and how your support and how your generosity of spirit and goodwill is literally spun into these essential meals and nutrition and care. Thank you very much for making it possible for Broadway Cares to extend your goodness to them to create this kind of work. While we still face unknowable challenges, I really do take heart in that we can walk this path towards renewal and replenishment together. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Perry. Thank you, James. Thank you, Alyssa. I wish you all the best. And although, Perry, I know you're in Alabama where it's warm, I wish all of us in Albany, Boston, and Minneapolis another 10 degrees of spring.